Makers. At Makers, we train software engineers. We take career changes and we retrain them as software engineers. And for the last 3 years, I've been working with various companies, Deloitte, Santander, JP Morgan, to help them to change their recruitment practices to become more inclusive and to help them to attract and onboard and hire and train the developers that we produce. Many of the companies that I work with are going through quite significant change. Obviously, that's why we're all here today. So we often have to work creatively to address their needs and meet their requirements. And so I'm here with Jon to tell you about that, how we've done that with Vodafone.
Good.
We also need a clicker, if anyone's got one. We didn't get one.
We need a clicker. So hi everyone, good afternoon. Jon Davies, I head up the digital team in Vodafone in the UK, so looking after all of our digital channels, digital experiences, digital teams, focused across our B2B, our consumer, as well as our B2C enterprise businesses as well. So we've been going through, as you can imagine, kind of constant change. Transformation is ongoing. I've been there 4 years, and we've been through regular cycles of transformation, probably every 12 to 18 months, with the latest one probably being the most exciting as we've moved from Newbury, the Vodafone HQ in the UK, to London, to our new digital hub within the last sort of 9 to 12 months. So super exciting times for us. And I think for me, transformation, yes, you can look at it as a checklist. There's technology things that we need to do, operations, processes, AI, a whole host of kind of things to keep you distracted. But fundamentally for us, the big thing that we are focused on is the culture and the people. That for us is where we're really going to see the business transform as we kind of really dial up the focus on digital within the business. So hence why we're spending so much time together working on kind of the people plan for Vodafone in the UK. So here's Prashant. So Prashant works at Vodafone. So for the past 7 years, Prashant's been working in one of our retail stores in central London, serving customers, selling our products, but also helping customers with kind of in-life queries as they come into the store. And he joined Vodafone straight out of university. He joined as a part-time job, but then got kind of drawn in, loved it so much, he stayed. But while he was at university, he was also a hobby coder as well. So had a huge amount of kind of talent and skills that he wasn't necessarily employing. And he personally wanted to further that journey. Didn't see necessarily an opportunity within Vodafone, but I'm pleased to say that now he is embedded within our software engineering team in our London hub and is doing an amazing job building out our new, kind of at the moment he's focused on our new e-shop, our new e-commerce capability, which is sitting on top of a load of new microservices that we've been investing in the last sort of 12 months. And I'm super happy, and he's super happy, because we've taken somebody who understands our customer needs on the front line intimately and applying those day-to-day, creating new solutions with the rest of the team in London. So that's why we're kind of calling out that as a particular success story, because it's very much about the people.
So when Vodafone came to us in early 2018, they were about to go through that largest cycle of transformation yet. They were opening the digital hub in London, embedding Agile across the organization, building a new microservices layer, and creating their engineering culture. So they were building an engineering culture based on collaboration, extreme programming principles, test-driven development, pair programming, cross-functional teams. And they were looking for software engineers who would bring the right skills and behaviors to build that culture. But it wasn't just about sourcing new talent. We talked about the need to grow talent from within Vodafone. Technology, the impact of technology means that jobs are changing. The jobs that we have today and the job market is going to be very different in 2, 3, 5, 10 years' time. It's something we're all aware of. So we worked with Vodafone to come up with a solution. Alongside direct hiring from our academy, we created Code Ready. Code Ready is an initiative for people like Prashant to switch careers within Vodafone, so they can work anywhere across the business and they can apply to become a software engineer. Yep,
so why are we doing it? I mean, ultimately within Vodafone, we, like every other company I imagine, has big ambitions for how to increase the contribution coming from digital within the business, how it can influence sales, profitability, customer experience. So like everybody else, big focus on how can we attract the talent into the business to be able to do that. So historically we have been kind of pretty dependent on third parties, whether or not that's agencies or systems integrators, and there's still a very important part to play for those kind of teams. However, in order to kind of realise our aspiration to generate more innovation within the business, create more empowered teams working on kind of their own code base, is that there was a desire to insource a lot of activity and expand. So hence that was the trigger really for us to relocate from Newbury over to London. There are a lot of very capable people in Newbury, it's just we'd recruited all of them. So we needed to expand into London and build our new capability in Southwark. So we've been busy doing that. And in order to kind of attract that talent, there's a number of different activities we've been doing, looking externally. So obviously tapping into the market, giving ourselves visibility of what it is that we're trying to achieve, the good things that can be done within the business, but also starting to really dial up the amount of attention we pay to our people within the business. So providing a real career path and opportunity for people on the front line. And I'm talking specifically about people within the retail estate, people within our contact centres that deal with customers day to day. And that's why kind of we ultimately started working with makers to be able to tap into that resource that already exists within the business.
This is you as well, John. Practiced.
So how do we do this? I was put in touch with Emily on the back of a recommendation from a friend who said very good things about makers, and met with Emily I think early last year. So what I was particularly impressed by was makers' attitude towards creating the right culture, the right nurturing environment for our people as well. So while we were expanding and looking to kind of scale very, very quickly, there's also a very important kind of dimension, which is making sure that you've got the right environment and ecosystem to kind of foster the right ways of working. And I would say makers put us through a lot of due diligence, just ensuring that we both had very kind of consistent aspirations for how we wanted people to grow within the business, and that aligned super well. It's very much not a case of body shopping, it's really tapping into the right people with the right attitude and the right mindset that want to come into the business to kind of create, do great things, but be plugged into the business as well. So be part of genuine cross-functional teams where the business, coders, scrum masters, you name it, all sit side by side creating fantastic new things. So there's two routes to that really. One is working with makers to tap into kind of the organic people that are attracted to what makers provide, which is obviously kind of the advanced and accelerated training in programming. And what was really appealing about that is seeing the number of people that come in with a lot of life skills with quite diverse backgrounds. So doctors, vets, concert pianists, one of which we have in the team right now, but very, very diverse, but with a very sort of clear expectation of what they wanted out of their career, as well as utilising the apprenticeship levy, which Vodafone is actively using, which I think many of you will be able to tap into, where we can fund the training. Obviously the individuals coming out of the business, whether it's contact centres or retail, continue to be paid the salary during that, with the obvious assurance of coming into a job within the engineering team at the end of it.
When it comes to makers, everything you know about education, everything you've experienced in your own education, forget it. Leave it at the door. We don't have classrooms, we don't have teachers, we don't have exams, there's no pass or fail, there's no homework, we don't even have a set curriculum. We believe that the current traditional education system is broken, especially for technology. Everything at Makers is about creating people who are job ready, who can solve problems, who can think about the customer. And a big part of that is around self-led learning. Sure, they learn how to write code and it's maintainable, extensible, readable, it's well tested. But what we're really doing is giving them the scaffolding to learn how to learn, metacognition, if you're familiar with that term. So they can pick up new technologies. Many of the companies that I work with are completely replatforming, rewriting massive parts of their code base, often in React, very popular. And these are technologies that didn't exist a few years ago. And when I speak to people about hiring developers and they say, oh, we need someone with 8 years of Java experience, that's the person that we need. That's not necessarily the best developer, because you might not always be using Java. What we believe is that it's people who can pick up new technologies, who are lifelong learners, who are super passionate and driven and curious. Those are the good developers. And it's also people who can work well in teams, which is why we have an emotional intelligence curriculum that we run alongside the course. We have a Chief Joy Officer, the best job title. And as part of that, people learn how to communicate, how to work together, how to recognize their own emotions. We also do yoga twice a week. We have meditation daily. So we have a really big focus on well-being as well. And all of that is the future of tech education. So as part of this, we look for really, really highly motivated people. We're really keen that people who invest their time doing this aren't set up to fail, they're set up for success. And so we have a selection process. And we worked with Vodafone to help to attract the people who were interested. We did events, we did some content, and those people who went through our selection process. And those who were successful joined the course as part of the apprenticeship levy. It was upfront, it's super intensive, so that when they join the team, they're full-time. We also had Moisha, who joined from the graduate scheme, in addition to Prashant, and Claire, who was at Vodafone for 17 years in various different roles, and always said that her dream job was to be a developer. Now she's living the dream. So they added value from day one, they hit the ground running, but when Jon and I were chatting, what struck me was that it's not just the impact on the development team, it's not just the kind of personal, individual impact that's made a difference, but it's been across the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you can imagine, with such a kind of pace of change and also quite a departure for the business, over the past couple of years, kind of really embracing Agile and insourcing so many kind of engineers into the business, there's a need to continue to communicate that and really showcase it across the business. So using a number of the squads within the team and within the London hub as kind of a lighthouse or an exemplar. So it's been super encouraging to see not only the success of the teams on the ground and how effective they become working collaboratively, but also kind of the well-being side really surface as well. And I think Makers has been kind of a big factor in that, is starting to see that just organically appear within the hub in London, is that we do have yoga classes, meditation, no shortage of all of the usual toys around table football and table tennis, but going beyond the superficial and really starting to see teams really taking this seriously as well. So that's super encouraging. But then one of the unexpected surprises was with all of this activity and this new way of working, it just became very infectious within the business. So we then got attention from the board, so all of our kind of C-suite attaching themselves to these squads, spend time, live and breathe it, understand how it works, but then also a lot of interest coming from kind of unusual teams such as sourcing, finance, that wanted to get into it and really start to understand kind of what some of the ingredients were for this apparently far more engaging way of working that ultimately led to kind of far happier as well as productive teams as well. So without a shadow of a doubt, kind of this has demonstrated kind of a real proof point to the rest of the business to give confidence about just how important it is to continue on this journey.
As for the future, we are currently in the process of training people on a larger scale across the country with a focus on those retail stores. And clearly you've heard the importance that Vodafone attaches to its people and cultural transformation. We all recognise that there's a skills gap. That's something that pretty much everyone accepts. But the companies that are doing this well are the ones that recognise that this isn't just about plugging a resource gap, bringing in people to get the code written. What we need to do is create the workforce of the future. What I've learned throughout this process, working with Jon and Vodafone and the other hiring partners that I work with, is that teaching a skill doesn't cut it. It's not the be-all and end-all, it only gets you so far. Jon mentioned at the beginning that digital transformation isn't a checklist. It's not about just like getting all these things done and having your 5-year plan, and then once that's done, great, well done, you've done your digital transformation, let's move on to the next thing. It's not about that. Technology, by its very nature, is going to continue to change. And so having a 5-year plan with a checklist isn't going to work. You're going to be doing it forever. So it's about changing your culture, nurturing your teams, growing future leaders, and building a sustainable model for growth. One based on teams who not just understand your customer and their needs, but who are curious, who are resilient, who embrace change, who are hyper adaptive. Because digital transformation isn't going away. We're in an ever-changing landscape. Thank you. We do have time for questions.
Do we have any questions in the room? Yep.
We've got 15 minutes.
Hiya. There we go. I think in general it's fair to say that in general, I don't want to stereotype here, that younger people are probably more or less resistant to change. They're more likely to take on new skills or look and be curious as to new things. And I know you gave an example of someone at Vodafone that had been there for 17 years and then wanted to go into the Makers Academy. But I'm really interested to hear about if you have any attachment to people that have graduated from the academy, how you ensure that they basically keep this mindset of transformation, or if they go through a similar transition to people, as they age, they have the skills that they're good at, they're familiar with the way that they work, and they get used to it and entrenched with it. And it's a question for Vodafone as well. Do you have anything to encourage people to maintain this transformation culture?
Yeah, so it's a really good question, and it's something that's been very present in our minds at Makers for the last couple of years, which is why we now work with people for a year after they finish the course to help our companies that are hiring partners to embed and train them. Something we find is that, especially working with big corporations, you might have some teams that are working in a way that really models the behaviors and the skills and the ways of working that you want to see across all your teams, but it's not the reality across all of your teams. Some of them won't be working in that way. And what we don't want to happen is that we place some makers in there and they've got this particular mindset, and then it gets swamped because they're junior and everybody else is not testing their code or whatever. So we actually work with the makers and with the teams and the team leads to help them as well with how to give and receive feedback more effectively, how to pair program more effectively, how to break down your work for juniors more effectively, because it's a big project and it is about your people and your team leads. I think with Vodafone, we've been super lucky, and you've got some amazing team leads there who are really invested in growing junior people. But that's not true everywhere, and it's not true in every single team, and it probably isn't true in every single Vodafone team. Sorry, Jon.
That's all right.
So yeah, that's something that it's a continuous challenge that we work with our hiring partners on.
Yeah, just to add to that, I'd say one of the things with so much recruitment and so much hiring going on at the moment, one of the things that we're very transparent about with everybody that we interview that we want to kind of bring into the business is that do not expect the finished article. Is that externally, big brands, typically you think, well, everything is kind of like harmonious and perfect internally. It never is. And we're very transparent in saying we want you to join to be part of kind of setting the next target state, because there's never an end state. It's just kind of constant iteration. So just impressing upon people that we want them to be part of shaping how the business continues to evolve, rather than kind of expecting it to be kind of a consistent job over the next 10 years. It's absolutely not going to be. And we have active programs to be able to kind of look at how we move people across squads, kind of continue to progress them through kind of their learning cycle in order to be able to progress either sideways or upwards within the business.
And just lastly, I think I would gently challenge the assumption that someone who's a bit older might be a little bit more resistant to change. At Makers, we've had people, I think the oldest person is 64, and we've had multiple ex-software engineers come through the course because they want to learn new ways of working, and it's amazing, the humility of someone coming through. Someone called Kate recently, she had 15 years of experience in software engineering, took a break to have children, and was running her own business, and then took the leap back into software engineering. She just finished the course and just landed a job with Deloitte. And that's someone who's got extensive life experience and massive value that she can add to that company. And so, I would say actually it's not the case that you can kind of make that stereotype effectively.
Emily, John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.